Thank you all. It's a good to be back in the state of Indiana. I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. I used to spend a lot of time here. My dad, came over from India to this country. We used to ask him, why'd you come halfway around the world to Cincinnati, Ohio? He said he had to be close to his sister who lived in Indiana. That, of course, begged the question of why his sister came halfway around the world to Fort Wayne, Indiana. And we joke around, it's the only U.S. state with the word India contained in the name of the state. It's good to be back. I actually came from the campaign trail here from New Hampshire. We're on a bus tour. I started this morning with an event. I'm going to be speaking at an event tonight in New Hampshire. But I came here to be with you in person, actually. I didn't want to be one of those career politicians that checks the box, speak to you by Zoom on NRA or whatever. I wanted to be here in person to deliver a personal message. I came here to tell you why I became a gun owner. I'm going to be really honest with you. Came from an immigrant family with an emphasis on math and science. I grew up in an anti-gun household. We didn't grow up hunting. We didn't go sport shooting. I could probably, if I'm being honest with you, tell you I've gone to the shooting range probably less than I can count on two hands. I like it plenty, but it's not my main hobby. I'm not going to act like something else. But the reason I became a gun owner is that the Second Amendment was made for moments like today. I'll tell you this. Somebody out there, I was walking the halls, asked me a question. He said, what kind of gun do you own? I said, I own an AR-15. He gave me a little quiz. He said, what does that stand for? I said, you don't know what it stands for? It stands for freedom. That's the real answer, actually. I'm going to read you a quote, actually. I'm going to read you a quote from the Constitution. I brought it with me just for you guys because it relates to the speech here I'm about to give you. Here's the quote. No authority has the right to infringe upon political independence or the right to abrogate individual freedoms. Sounds pretty good. That is a quote from Article 9 of the Constitution of Iran. Iran has 177 articles in their constitution. We have 10 amendments in our Bill of Rights. They have 177 of them. But you know what they don't have? They don't have a Second Amendment, which means you don't get any of those under 177 either. They banned their citizens from owning guns. That's how it works in Iran. That's not just an exception. Let me read you a quote from a different constitution of a different nation. The unlawful detention or deprivation of freedom is prohibited. The unlawful search of persons of citizens is prohibited. Too bad that's from the Constitution of China, which will tell you that they offer the same freedoms they do here in the United States. But you know what the difference is? In China, they don't have a Second Amendment. They ban their citizens from owning a gun. That is what makes America's Bill of Rights a reality rather than just an American dream. It is the fact that we have a Second Amendment that gives teeth to every one of the other amendments in that Constitution. Even we haven't been perfect in this country. I want you to raise your hand if you know when the first anti-gun laws were passed in this country. Raise your hand if you do. 1865. You want to know when it happened? We fought a civil war in this country to give black Americans the equal protection under the law that we failed to secure them in 1776. But then you want to know what happened? Southern states passed anti-gun laws that stopped black people from owning guns. The Democrat Party then, as in now, wanted to put them back in chains. That's exactly what they wanted to do. That is how you got Jim Crow. That is how you got to Martin Luther King Jr. being denied his concealed carry permit wrongly by J. Edgar Hoover's FBI, just as the FBI today politicizes its behavior against its political opponents today. That is not right. That is not America. And you want to know who fixed that problem? It's you all, actually, who fixed that problem. The NRA is the one that got the job done by securing the rights of black Americans to own guns, that trained black Americans in this country to own guns. It was the NRA that got that done. And as a first-generation American with brown skin myself, let me tell you, Thank you for what you did, because I grew up in this country in the 1990s where we enjoyed the freedoms that the Second Amendment secured. That's the other freedoms in the Bill of Rights. That's the America I know. Thank you. But the America I grew up in is not the America that I see today. Today we have a country that says you enjoy free speech rights, yet Douglas Mackey is now facing up to 10 years in prison for making a joke on the internet about Hillary Clinton. We tell you that you have property rights in this country, yet they will use your pension funds to advance political agendas, like telling gun manufacturers that they can't borrow money from banks. They will tell you that we live in a country where we elect the people who actually run the government, and yet the party in power will use police power to arrest its chief political rivals who are former presidents of the United States. That is not the America that I knew or grew up in. That is not the America that I learned to pledge allegiance to as a nation. And the only thing standing in their way is the Second Amendment, which is why they're now going after the Second Amendment itself. They tell you that now if you own a pistol brace, you got to be effectively added to a gun registry. They'll tell you they want to pressure credit card companies to track transactions to add you to that same federal gun registry. The state of Washington just last week banning the owning of AR-style rifles. Gun manufacturers not being able to borrow money from banks. They'll now tell you the state of New York, believe this or not, if you want to get a concealed carry permit, New York is now saying that you got to submit your social media profiles. Let me guess how this one's going to play out, all right? So BLM or Antifa, no problem. There's your gun. Couple of American flags, maybe you're a domestic terrorist, okay? Not very hard to predict this one. And isn't it funny that it's the very states and cities that will tell you they want to defund the police and clear the jails that'll also be the ones that stop you from actually defending yourself against the crime that their policies create. You know what's interesting is one of those cities is Austin, Texas, where Sergeant Daniel Perry was wrongly convicted for defending himself against a Black Lives Matter rioter who was pointing a rifle at him. Self-defense is not a crime in this country, and I stand with Governor Greg Abbott in making sure that he receives a pardon as he is due. Thank you. The Second Amendment is our last line of defense, and you want to know who knew that? Our founding fathers knew it. They knew more than we give them credit for. You know, the first shots that were fired in Lexington, in Concord, it was because the British monarchy came to take the guns of the colonists. They came to take the guns because they knew where the guns and bullets were stored. Think of that gun registry today. That's what the British monarchy knew. Where our founding fathers said, you know what? What the British monarchy did to us, we will create a government to make sure that government never does it to you. That is why they included the Second Amendment. In God we trust, they said. It's on the bottom of our coins. It's on the bottom of our dollar bills for a reason, because when we say in God we trust, that means that in government we distrust. That is what it means to be American. That is who we are. We are the explorers. We are the pioneers who came to this country, whose parents came to this country, whose forefathers came to this country to be free, to be the explorers, to roam the American terrain without any government telling them what they could or couldn't do. And the reason we're able to do it is because of the existence of that Second Amendment. Now, I'll tell you, you hear from the other side that, well, we have school shootings in this country. We have mass shootings. I'll tell you, there's not a person in this room that wants to see another school shooting in this country. You want to have the courage to deal with it, then step up and deal with the actual problem. We have a mental health epidemic across America. You want to do something, you can ban social media and kids under the age of 15 or 16 before you take guns away from law-abiding adults in America. You want to solve the problem, you better take away. You want to solve the drugs on the street, you want to use our military. Don't go out to protect somebody else's border. Protect our border here in the United States and end the fentanyl crisis. That is how you solve the problem. The fatherlessness epidemic. 25% of kids are born into families without a household. Black Lives Matter says they want to annihilate the nuclear family structure. You want to know what I say? The nuclear family structure is the best known form of governance to mankind. We actually need to bring back the family because that's actually what creates the shooting problems in this country. Fix the problem. Now, that mental health epidemic, where did it come from? It didn't start in a vacuum, okay? It started because we are lost in the desert. I'm going to tell you something about myself. I'm 37 years old. I was born in 1985. I'm the first millennial candidate ever to run for U.S. president as a Republican. I'm going to speak to you on behalf of my generation. I'm going to tell you something about us. I think it's true about all of us of every age, actually, in this country. We are lost. We are hungry for a cause. We're hungry for purpose and meaning and identity when the things that used to fill that purpose, like faith, patriotism, hard work, family, these things have disappeared. Wokeness, gender ideology, transgenderism, the climate cult, COVID cult have taken their place. You ask someone my age, what does it mean to be an American? You get a blank stare in response. That is the problem at the heart of our national soul. And if we can answer what it means to be an American today, that is how you stop the spread of anxiety and depression and uncertainty and self-doubt. So what does it mean to be American? It means you believe in basic ideas like merit, the idea that you get ahead in this country not on the color of your skin, as Martin Luther King said it, but on the content of your character and your contributions, which is why I'll end race-based affirmative action in America. Means you believe in the rule of law, that people like my parents who want to come to this country can come through the front door and make their contributions, but I am sorry, your first act of entering this country cannot be a law-breaking one. That is not racist or xenophobic. It is what it means to be American. Means we believe. Thank you. Means we believe in free speech and open debate, because I'll tell you this, free speech is a condition for peace in America. You tell people they cannot speak, that is when they scream. You tell people they cannot scream, that is when they tear things down. Our founding fathers knew that as well as anybody. They had a dream in this country. It's the dream that I have as a citizen, that the people who we elect to run the government in America ought to be the people who actually run the government in America, not this permanent state administrative bureaucracy that actually runs the show. And that is why we need to get in there and shut down that federal bureaucracy. I'll tell you where I'll start. Let's start with the Department of Education. 83, thank you. Let me hear it. $83 billion a year spent on God knows what, foisting race and gender ideology onto our kids. Shut that down for a quarter of that budget. I've done the math on this. You can put 3 armed security guards in every school across this nation. You tell me what's a better use of money. I've also said that we need to go further. When you have an agency like that FBI that told Martin Luther King he couldn't have that concealed permit, that now tells conservatives effectively the same thing, politicizing the police state against them, you can't reform that from the top down. That is why I've said what you're not supposed to say, but I'm saying it tonight. I will say it again. We will shut down the FBI and replace it with a police apparatus that actually respects the law instead of making it up. And that apparatus can actually do the job of those background checks, which means that tonight I'm pleased to make the announcement that if I'm elected next president of the United States, we will finally shut down the ATF, an agency that is beyond repair. That is the right answer left in the country. And while we're at it, let's make constitutional carry the law of the land and finally put any ban on those efforts to actually make that federal gun registry, because they want to be able to find you just like the British monarch wanted to find the colonists. We're not going to let that happen. So the thing is, I'll say this in closing. Okay. Our founding fathers, they knew what we were doing. We celebrate today our diversity and our differences. If we get this right, we can actually stand up to the real foreign policy threats that we face. You want China not to invade Taiwan? Here's something we can do. The NRA can open its branch next time in Taiwan. And you want to stop Xi Jinping from invading Taiwan? Put a gun in every Taiwanese household. Have them defend themselves. Let's see what Xi Jinping does then. That is what it means to be an actual American. Train them how to use guns, just like we did to black people in this country after the Civil War. Taiwan, we're coming for you. We're with you, Taiwan. Put a gun in every household. China ain't gonna do a peep. Xi Jinping got nothing on us. That is what it means to be American. Do not celebrate your diversity and your differences. We need to go back and remember all the ways we're really just the same as Americans, bound by that common set of ideals that set this nation into motion 250 years ago. E pluribus unum. From many, one. You see, that is the dream that won the American Revolution. That is the dream that reunited us after that Civil War. That is the dream that won us 2 world wars and the Cold War. That is the dream that still gives hope to the free world. And if we can revive that dream over this fractious group identity nonsense, then nobody in the world, not a nation, not a corporation, not a virus is going to defeat us. That is what American exceptionalism is all about, and that is what we will revive to save this great nation. Thank you. God bless you. God bless your families. God bless the United States of America. Thank you.